everybody, my name is Quinn and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to be doing a book talk on the fabulous Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. I wouldn't even watch this video if you haven't read City of Heavenly Fire because I just feel like even the description of Lady Midnight will somewhat spoil City of Heavenly Fire for you. So for those of you who haven't read City of Heavenly Fire and plan on reading City of Heavenly Fire, I would exit out of this video now and come back when you have read City of Heavenly Fire and Lady Midnight because I would love to have you here. I was so excited to get my hands on this book. It was my most anticipated release of 2016, but basically Lady Midnight takes place 5 years after the Dark War, and it follows Julian and Emma at the Los Angeles Institute, and they're investigating a series of murders that have been happening in Los Angeles concerning fairies and downworlders, which is a problem because of the cold peace in City of Heavenly Fire, which means that they cannot investigate anything that has to do with fairies because that's left to the Sholomance. Regular Shadowhunters aren't even allowed to deal with fairies after the cold peace. Before we get into the spoilery section of this video, I just wanted to say I absolutely love this novel. Cassandra Clare never disappoints. Her characters are always so kick-ass, but you also really empathize with them, even the bad ones, and I think that she just really develops her characters so well that you feel like you know them. And that is something that's really hard for an author to do, but Cassandra Clare always manages to accomplish that. Her plot takes you in places you never think that it will, and her story is just really exciting, and it makes you just want to keep reading and never put the book down, which I think is great, and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. That is it for the spoiler-free section of Lady Midnight. If you have not read it, I urge you to pause this video, go read Lady Midnight, and come back and join us. And now I'm going to get into the spoiler discussion of Lady Midnight. I also want to say I'm sorry this review takes so long to get up, but I wanted to really take my time with this book because I feel like with some other of her books I've kind of flew through, and I really just wanted to take my time and fully appreciate it. So I'm sorry the book review is late, but better late than never. I have my iPad here with all of my notes so I don't forget anything, so if you see this like harsh glow in my face, that's what that is. But I just really love this novel. I think Cassandra Clare has grown a lot as an author, which, I mean, she was already amazing to begin with. So the fact that she's grown has just said a lot about her writing style and everything, and all of her characters. Everything has just advanced to this level that she wasn't at before, and I'm really glad that she has just become a better writer and author because of it. I really enjoyed how inclusive and diverse Cassandra Clare's book was. There were a lot of characters from different races, there were characters of different sexualities, and I think that just makes the book much more relatable and accessible to so many different people so that everyone can kind of find a character in the book that they relate to, and I think that's just so important to make books diverse and inclusive. So kudos to Cassandra Clare. I really enjoyed that aspect of your novel. Going off that, I was really pleased that Cassandra Clare included Ty's character. You know, it's not outright said, but it's kind of hinted at that Ty has a learning disability, or even possibly autism was kind of what I got from his sensitivity to noise and light, and the fact that he's always kind of like fidgeting with his hands and stuff. And I just think it's really important to include characters with disabilities because people do have disabilities, and to kind of ignore them in books is kind of excluding a whole group of people. And I think it was just really great of her to include that character in that novel. Through Ty's story, we kind of see how awful the Clave is. They don't have a word for depression or things like dyslexia. They just kind of are very ashamed of these characters, and they send these Shadowhunters to dark institutes where no one is going to find them. And I was just kind of blown away by that, and I can't wait to see how Cassandra Clare handles that in the rest of her novels, and hopefully the Clave becomes more inclusive. This book just really had a new dynamic to it. I think that because of all the other books we've been following characters who didn't know about the Shadowhunter world, it's really interesting to see a character who has grown up in this world and knows all the rules. It was kind of good to see that because, you know, most of us have already read the other books, so it kind of led less exposition and right into the plot, which I really enjoyed. In this book, we also see more of a family dynamic, which is really good. In the Mortal Instruments series, we did see Alec and Izzy, but it wasn't really a whole family because, you know, Maurice and their father was just, their relationship was something else. But this, we really see a very tight family unit. Emma kind of acts like the mom figure, and Julian kind of acts like the father. Well, Julian is their father for all intents and purposes. He's kind of most of what the kids have grown up with their entire life. It was just really interesting to see that kind of different dynamic, and a Shadowhunter as a family rather than Shadowhunters as individuals. The family bond in this novel is so strong and so powerful. Julian would literally do anything for these children. He's basically given up his whole life, everything that is kind of his interest. He pours into these children, and he's only like, what, 17, 18 years old? I couldn't imagine doing that at 17 or 18 years old. He's basically raising these children on his own, and I think that's really commendable, and it just adds another layer to the Shadowhunter world. It's a very different story than all the other books, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So obviously in this novel we got a lot of Mark, and I was really pleased with how Cassandra Clare developed his character, because I think that would have been too easy for him to get back and be like totally fine with everything, but it's really a struggle for Mark. He wants to be home with his family, but he doesn't know if he quite fits there. And he knows that the fairy world has been so bad to him, but he feels like it's almost one of the only homes that he's ever known because he's been with them for so long. And seeing that struggle was really heartbreaking, but it was also such good character development, and it made for a much more interesting story. I felt so bad for Kiernan. I know that you're supposed to hate him, and I know that he did awful things, like in Emma and Julian's whipping scene, but you can see that he really did truly love Mark. I mean, he was raised in the fairy world, and that is probably all he's ever known. I mean, his own father threw him to the Wild Hunt and didn't really care about him. So he doesn't really know how to fully express his love like a human does. So I felt really bad for Kiernan when Mark decided to stay in the end. And I have a feeling that he will resurface in the series, and I'm kind of looking forward to that. But poor Kiernan. Now we have to talk about Julian and Emma's relationship because I love it. It's probably my second favorite relationship in all of Cassandra Clare's series, first being, you know, Clace, because Clace is OTP forever. But I really enjoyed their relationship. You could tell they just had known each other their whole life, and they knew each other like the back of their hand. And that's just a really interesting dynamic other than the other books where they kind of had to get to know each other. And it's just such a natural relationship, and that you can't really see them with anyone else. But also there's all this awful conflict, and you know, they're not supposed to be together because they're parabatai, and it was just it was so heartbreaking to watch when, you know, they first had sex. And I was really not expecting that because Cassandra Clare usually doesn't include that until like the end of her novels, or she doesn't include it at all. So seeing in the first book was a nice change, and I feel like it made it much more realistic. When they had sex and then Julian woke up and he was like, yeah, I don't really love you in that way. I was like, yes you do, stop being a fuckboy. And like, Julian, you love her, just tell her. And Emma was so hurt, and I just felt so bad for her because she was like, I love you. I mean, didn't we say that? And he was like, no. And obviously I know he's trying to protect her, but I was like, Julian, you don't have to be a fuckboy. Like, she knows you're not a fuckboy, so And obviously the most heartbreaking part is when we learn about the Parabatai curse. We've always kind of known that they weren't supposed to be together, but I just thought it was kind of one of those Clave restrictive rules. But it's really because Parabatai make each other stronger, and if they are in love with each other, they become so strong that they become like almost magical warlocks, sort of, in a way. That was how it was described in the book, and we can kind of see that by how Emma's runes burn into her and how she was able to save Julian when she really shouldn't have been able to. It was just really heartbreaking because they could really end up killing each other. Basically, it was kind of described as like a madness. They become so powerful that they become mad and kind of like even kill their family, is what kind of Jem says, and that was just really heartbreaking to read. And then we have the Julian Emma scene where she's basically like kind of breaking up with him and being like, we can't be together, like I don't want to sneak around, and he just kind of won't let it go. And to that point, Emma had never really said the words I love you or like I'm in love with you. She had always thought them, but she was always being interrupted when she wanted to say those words to him. They kind of left each other without him properly knowing how she felt about him, which is probably the most heartbreaking part of all. He wasn't even able to know that the love was reciprocated, and that kind of just really broke my heart. And then we get to the Mark part, which is just, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like she can break it off with him without completely breaking his heart. They will never be able to recover from that, I don't think. Julian says, he's like, if you are with Mark, I don't think I could come back from that. And we get this really weird scene between Julian and Emma at the end. He's like, oh, I need you to do a favor for me. I need us to pretend that we're in love, that we're falling in love, that we're boyfriend and girlfriend. And he's like, why pretend? Why lie? And I don't know, know if that's supposed to be taken in a creepy way, like why lie, like actually be my girlfriend, Emma, or it's supposed to be like why lie, like why are you lying to Julian sort of thing. So we'll see how creepy that gets in Lord of Shadows, and I'm really interested to see how they can recover from that as Parabatai in Lord of Shadows. Such a great part of this novel was that we saw so many characters from the Mortal Instruments and the Infernal Devices come up in the novel, and that was just so great to read. But at the same time, they weren't kind of like thrown in your face. They were kind of just like subtly like woven in, and the story really was about Julian and Emma. It wasn't about Clary and Jace. While they were in the novel for, brief periods of time, I think it was really important that she wove the characters in, but that the story wasn't revolving around them. We also learned that Simon and Izzy are getting married, and I was like, oh, that's so cute. But at the same time, I was like, why aren't Clary and Jace getting married yet? And then at the end of the book, after like Lady Midnight is finished, there's a section that's like a brief scene from after the Mortal Instruments, and I was so excited to read that. And they're at Simon and Izzy's engagement party, and Jace takes Clary into this room and he kisses her, and it's so romantic, and he's like, Clary, marry me. And then of course the Inquisitor has to come in and like ruin their romantic moment. But then at the end of the chapter, it's like Claire's like, I'm dreading giving Jace my answer. I was like, Clary Frey, you marry Jace and you marry him right now. Don't be stupid. So if Clary does not marry Jace, I want to know what her reason is, and I'll be very mad at her because Jace loves you and you guys are perfect together. Ugh. And now to talk about the Guardian. I'll be honest, I thought that Arthur was the Guardian for the longest time, because we get this flashback scene where Arthur is basically like, when I release blood, the voices in my head go away. So I was like, oh my god, he must be killing these people so that he can have like moments of sanity and blah 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 blah. Truth be told, I was very wrong, but I was like so confident in that, and then it just was totally off. I suck at predicting endings, so what you gonna do? I did, however, kind of think that it was Malcolm a couple pages before the characters figured it out, and I was kind of like proud of myself, like I figured something out for once. But when they said that the Guardian was from England, I was like, oh, Malcolm's from England, and everything kind of clicked together. I wasn't so surprised that Malcolm was the Guardian. Some people were really surprised by it, but I kind of felt like it wasn't a huge surprise. I wasn't so surprised, but I still think it was a nice plot twist. And now Kit. I kind of knew there was something off about Kit, and I kind of did think that he was a shadow hunter. I feel like they wouldn't have spent so much time on him, and by the end I was like, yeah, he's totally a shadow hunter. So I always had this feeling that he was a shadow hunter, or that he was a downworlder in some sense, and his father is so protective about him, especially when it comes to shadow hunters. He exposes him to warlocks and vampires and all that stuff, but when it comes to shadow hunters, it's like, no questions asked, you cannot come in contact with shadow hunters. So it wasn't a big surprise when I saw that Kit was a shadow hunter, but when they said that he was the Lost Arendelle, I was like, oh snap. Like, I was not expecting that at all. I haven't read the Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, so I didn't even know there was a Lost Arendelle, and I was just like completely mind blown. So I'm so excited to see how that plays into the next book, and I can't wait to see how Jace reacts, because he's like one of Jace's last living relatives, and it's so amazing that Jem and Tessa were the ones that found him, because it's just like, it shows that even after all those years, Jem so much cares about his Parabatai, and that bond just never dies even when one of them does die. So I cannot wait to see where Kit's character goes in the novels, especially since he's so reluctant towards the Shadowhunter world. I'm really curious to know what Diana's big secret is. We're kind of hinting at it all through Lady Midnight, but we never really get to the answer. We know she went to Thailand and probably did some like shady stuff down there, but I'm really excited to see what her secret is. I never thought that she was the Guardian, because I just knew there was no way that she would go from Idris all the way to be with these kids if she didn't really feel something for them that was genuine. So I never really thought she was Guardian, but I think that her secret is going to come into a much bigger play in the next novels. So those are all my thoughts and opinions on Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. I so much enjoyed this novel, and I can't wait for Lord of Shadows. I hope you all really enjoyed it too, and feel free to leave your comments on the novel down in the comments down below. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I will talk to you next time. Bye guys!